If you are looking for the best free synths to use in your productions, then you have come to the right place. In this video, I'm going to share 5 or 6 that you should really check out. Vital, Surge, OBXD, Tyrell N6, Zebralette, and Tal Noisemaker. Okay, so first we have Vital, a high-end wavetable synth featuring frequency and wave warping, stereo split LFOs, audio rate modulation, dual routable filters with analog and digital modes, and really cool custom shaped envelopes. There's also a ton of effects built in. And immediate thoughts is it looks pretty nice. I really like the layout of Vital. It's got a ton of great presets. So if you click at the top here, you've got all these presets to choose from, and you can choose different categories here. So let's just choose one at random, Disrupt. Let's go back to the main window. It's got a great sound about it. Definitely one if you like the kind of massive sound. If you like Serum, then this wavetable style of synthesis will be great for you. So you've got 3 oscillators up here. You can turn them on and off like so. Over on this left side, you've got macros. So you can assign multiple modulations to one dial. You can see all of these. These are LFOs or envelopes. And when you move this one, it's going to change a load of different controls at once. So yeah, you've got oscillators at the top here. You can turn them on. You've got 3, and then you've got a noise one that you can choose all these different noises from. And the same goes for each oscillator, each wavetable. You can choose different wavetables. And the way it works is there's loads of these different frames of each wavetable. So you can choose a different frame, or you can modulate it so that the frame changes over time. As these move, you can see they're being modulated. Then you've got 2 filters down here. You've got filter 1, filter 2, and you get to choose which of these are going to go through the filter by clicking on and off the oscillators here. Cool sound, really love the sound of Vital. Then you've got envelopes up here. So this will shape the sound. More of a lead sound now. And you've got your LFO. So if you want to modulate something, you just find an LFO. So we've got 2 already, select it. So it's got this green box around it. Then you drag and drop it onto whatever you want to modulate. So say we're going to set up a new one. Say we wanted LFO 6. I select that. I'm going to drag that, and let's apply it to the filter cutoff. So here is the cutoff. There we go. And by moving these little circles, you can assign where it's going to go. You see this green bar. Underneath, it's showing you which part of the signal it's going to oscillate or modulate. And if I want to change the frequency, the speed, sounds like a basketball bouncing. And that's the main areas here. You've got your kind of global controls at the bottom, glide and the spread of the unison and the slope. Then over here in this top section, you've got effects. So you've got all these different effects to choose from, and these are modulatable. So that's really cool. As you can see, some of these are being moved. Very nice. And then matrix, you've got where all your modulations are, so you can change them in here or delete them, whatever you want to do, change them, which is cool to see. It's very like Serum 1 in that way, in the way it's set up, I think. So my thoughts on Vital are, it looks really good. It's pretty easy to use. You can get some very interesting results with it. You can get some really interesting sounds. I think this is one of the best free synthesizers out there. It definitely sounds more like Serum or Massive. It has that wavetable sound, so it sounds slightly more digital, not as warm as some of the other synths we're going to look at. That's not a fault, it's just the style of this particular synthesizer, this type of wavetable synths. They tend to have a slightly more digital sound. But yeah, very capable. Love the built-in effects. It's a really, really good synth. Surge XT is an open source hybrid synthesizer, and it was originally commercially available. It's particularly great for sound design with multiple different synthesis modes. There's some great filters, highly flexible modulation engine, and strong community support. I personally love all the different types of oscillators it has, and it looks like this. And what's really cool about this synth is that you've got 2 scenes here. So you've basically got 2 versions of the synth in one. So you can either have it in single mode here, or you can have it in dual mode, so it will play both A and B together. With A, you've got 3 oscillators here, and in single mode, you would just have access to those 3. But if you come into dual mode, you'll run both A and B. And the oscillators themselves are really cool. You've got a load of different ones to choose from. You've got classic and some modern ones, triangle, so more kind of virtual analog waveforms here. And you've got wavetable as well, so similar to Vital. You can choose for all these different wavetables. Hello. And you can control these down here with pitch. You can morph them, skew the vertical, saturate them, change the format. You can really do quite a lot with this. It's quite impressive. Loads of presets to choose from the patch browser, basses, and you can cycle through them. I'm not convinced it sounds as good as Vital personally. I think it requires a little bit more work. So yeah, you've got all these different oscillators down here, sample and hold noise. So those are your oscillators. And then you've got your filters as well. So they sit in these two boxes, filter 1 here and filter 2 over here. So that's cool. You can change the filter type. There's quite a few to choose from. Over here is your effects section. The GUI on this synth I don't like as much. It's just a bit more, feels like it's been developed by an IT person rather than actually being like a musician's kind of synth. Just to look at, it's a little bit boxy and a little bit, yeah, okay. So you got your filters, you got your mixer section, which is really important because obviously you've got potentially up to 6 different oscillators going on here. So you can control the mix down here with your oscillators. Filter envelopes, some amp envelopes. So you can shape the sound there. Got your mod matrix down here. So if you want to change the cutoff, let's say automate the cutoff with an LFO, you'd click on LFO 1, you have to click it again and then choose what you want to automate. So I want to automate or modulate the cutoff here. Let's bring the rate up. That's because it's off, that would help. Let's move that. There we go. Quite an advanced mod matrix down here, lots of things you can choose from, and then you've got your LFOs down here, so whenever you click on like a LFO 1, LFO 2, you can change the rate and the phase and the amplitude and the shape, all there within the LFO. So that's quite cool. And we've got our effects over on this section, as I mentioned. What I do think is pretty cool is you can change the filter configuration up here, so you can quickly get some really interesting sounds. So yeah, I like Surge XT. I think it's a really cool synth. It's a bit more work, I think, than say Vital, and it does sound really good too. I find the GUI just a little bit more clunky. You can do some really cool stuff with it. And the Tal Noisemaker, another virtual analog synth. And I love this synth because it has a great sound to it and it's fairly easy to use. But more importantly, it's probably the most fun on the list to use. I constantly see myself smiling when I use this synth and can very easily get lost in sound design in this synth. It features 3 oscillators and some awesome routing options. It's very easy to make some interesting and different sounds with this synth. And so the interface is very simple. It looks very simple at least. So there's a load of presets up here. Got different bass, drums. Let's just play a few. And so it starts off with the LFOs up here. So you've got LFO 1 and 2, and you've got oscillator 1 and 2, so just 2 oscillators on this one. And then you've got a master section over here where you can also bring up a sub oscillator, so kind of like a third. It's just a pure kind of sine wave sub. You've got ring mod, you've got transposing tuning options, and then you've got filter section over here, an amplitude section over here. Here you've got like a drawable envelope shape that you can apply to certain things. So like the filter. And it helps if I turn up the amount. Change the speed. I can change it to other things. And you should see very quickly you can make some really weird noises just by turning things. And I love that. That's like my kind of thing. So this for coming up with interesting and different sounds is like really good. What else we got? You got effects down the bottom. You got chorus. So that's nice. It's just, everything's just nice. Sounds good. Crush. Probably distorting my output loads here. So yeah, a few more effects down here. Crush. Reverb, delay. This is a much more simple synth, but I think you can do so much with it. It's really, really interesting. On your oscillators, you've only got a few waves to choose from, 3 on that one and then 5 on this one. And you can pulse, do pulse width modulation, or you can do FM synthesis here. You've got a little display down here that shows you what you're doing. And just a few other things. You've got high cut, low cut feedback, and a few other kind of global controls down the bottom. So yeah, this one is a lot more simple than I'd say the first two we visited, but I think the sounds you get out of it are much more interesting, and you can do it a lot more quickly as well. This is just great for experimentation and coming up with your own kind of sound. So I really love this Tal Noisemaker, and I think it might be my favorite. Yeah, just get some really interesting sounds. OBXD. This is a free virtual analog synth modeled on the classic Oberheim OBX. This has a rich and warm sound to it. I particularly love when you engage the unison on this synth, and it does a great job at recreating the original, and it's free. So if you want to listen to some presets, you come to the menu, you go to the programs, and then just choose something. Blade Runner bass pad. And immediately you should be able to hear that this synth is a little bit warmer because it's virtual analog. It's not quite as crispy or clear in the top end. There's less hype in the top end up here. It does sound a bit warmer to me, and I quite like this sound, to be honest. It's a simpler synth in many ways than the ones we've looked at so far, but there's definitely a place for it. So let's just run through some of the settings. So it's got two oscillators and a noise oscillator, so you use the mixer here to bring them in. You can change the pitch of the oscillators here and the waveform of the oscillators here. You've got pulse width, so if you're using any pulse width, you can change that there. You've got your two waves. You've got waves here, waves there. You've got things like pitch envelope amount, and you've got things like pulse width envelope amount. So all the stuff to do with the oscillators there. And then you've got some controls here to do if you want to bend it an octave or bend oscillator 2. There's different controls you can add in there. If you want to make it sound a bit fatter, then go unison. There you go. It's going to stack some voices. Spread it. Get a bit wider kind of spread unison going on there, which is a really nice sound. So yeah, you've got the oscillators, you've got that control section, you've got the mixer, so that helps you blend everything together. Then it runs through into the filter, so cutoff obviously. And you can control the envelope amount. You can choose your filter type here, low pass, high pass, band pass, what have you. Cool, and then you've got your modulation, LFO, you can sync it, you can choose what you're going to assign it to, frequency amount. So if I put sync on, let's put it to quarter a note. Choose where I want it to send to. Here's where you can choose where your LFO mod's going to go. You've got filter envelope over here. And your amplifier envelope here. And a load of different voice variations down here that you can play with. So that's kind of it, essentially. Let's just go through a few more presets. So this one does just sound a bit more like a virtual analog synthesizer. I think it looks pretty cool. It's fairly easy to use as well. So I think it's just another great free tool to have in your arsenal. This one's definitely worth checking out if you ask me. Tyrell N6, which has been developed by Yuhi in conjunction with Amazona.de. I like this one because it's easy to get some quick and easy bass sounds out of. Once again, it has that kind of more analog sound than I'd say the Vital and the Surge. Like all of these, there's a lot of good presets, but yeah, this one has a analog emulation feel, and it's really simple to use. Once again, it's got a slightly warmer sound to it, and what I like about this one is it's fairly simple to use. The GUI is pretty cool, quite easy to look at. It's quite easy just to make some sounds, and you can very quickly get like a good sounding bass or something, like quite warm and quite nice sounding. So presets up here at the top. So how does it work? You've got some oscillators here. You can choose the shape of oscillators 1 and 2. You can control them in the mixer here. You've got separate sub oscillator, and separate noise oscillator, and separate ring mod, and some feedback. Then your usual filter kind of settings, cutoffs. Once again, really easy to use. It kind of reminds me of like an SH1, SH2. Resonance and the mix spread, filter mods. Here you can control the color of the noise. What else we got? Then you got your LFOs down here. You can change the rate, syncing them, the depth, and the shapes. I need to assign them somewhere first. So that's a mod to oscillator 1. Very cool. This is your modulation matrix area here. Then down here you've got some envelopes. You've got the VCA, so the main amplitude. So more of a pad sound if you've got a longer attack. And more of a plucky lead sound, or more of a lead sound if you change this bit. Then you've got a second envelope that you can assign up here. And then just a couple of effects down here. You've got chorus. It's a fairly simple synth, but it's just quite easy to get a nice sound out of quite quickly. Fairly one-dimensional in what it can do, but it is a nice sound, you know, for a free synthesizer. Definitely you can make some pads out of this, or some leads, some basses. Yeah, it's simple, but I do like this one. GUI is good, sounds nice. Yeah. Zebralette, this is also from Yuhi. It's basically a light version of their synth Zebra 2, which I also really like. Zebralette is a single oscillator spectral synthesizer. And because of that, maybe it doesn't quite sound as full as some of the other synths on this list. That's not to say that there isn't good use cases for this sound. This one I think takes a bit more work to get it to sound as good as some of the others, but it definitely comes out with some interesting textures. Like I like the way it does bell sounds. So this one's a little bit different because it's a spectral synth, and technically it only has one oscillator, though you can stack these on top of each other. So you got your presets up here. You can choose something. Let's hear how it sounds. And immediately I think you can hear that there's only one oscillator. It does sound a little bit thinner to me. I mean, just looking at that, there's like not a whole lot in the spectrum there. There's very few harmonics in these sounds, so that's why it sounds a bit thinner. But there's always a place for that as well. So how does this work? You've basically got this oscillator over here, this one oscillator, and you can stack it. You can either have single, dual, quad, or 11. You can choose presets for your oscillators here. So there's some presets. There we go, that's just a basic sawtooth. Close that up again. And then what you can do is detune them. I'll now move that to 11. That sounds a bit more interesting. You can play with the phase. Okay, so and over here you've got basically what's kind of like choosing the wavetable almost. This is called the wave warp. And if I choose one that's done one for me already, let's find one with a load of different waves. Here we go. So you've got a load of different waves you can choose from, different frames again, kind of like wavetable, but this is spectral. So you can very quickly edit these waveforms, which is quite cool. Once again, another synth that I think takes a bit more work to get it to sound good, but there are lots of possibilities within it. What I quite like is these oscillator effects over here. So you can move these up, you can choose from a load of different ones. This is like the modulator, and this is like the destination, so the source and the target. So if I move that to LFO1, let's say, change this. There you go, you can hear that a bit more now. So that's quite a cool sound. You've got your mixer section up here, volume, width, panning. You can modulate these as well. Got your global settings, they're fairly standard. You've got your envelope. So you can change the shape. This is nice as well. You've got an MSEG. So this is like an envelope that's quite dynamic. You can choose loads of these different envelope shapes. So yeah, you can choose all of these interesting envelopes, and you can also draw them in yourself. You can change these around. Right, and then you've got an effects section over here, which is fairly simple. So yeah, you've got mod effects and you've got delay. You can choose mod as a chorus or a chorus or a phaser. And then you've got a delay. The delay is quite cool. This synth is a little bit different and it's interesting and it's maybe a bit harder to get a sound out of, but you can get some interesting sounds out of it. The interface is quite nice. There's a little bit of a learning curve with it, but overall I do think this is quite a cool synth. But I'd say this synth kind of excels at doing pad sounds, maybe some lead stuff, but generally kind of textures and soundscapes and that kind of thing. So that's where I'd probably come to use this one. It does have more of a digital sound than a kind of analog-y sound. Yeah, I can get some weird sounds out of it, that's for sure. Let me know in the comments which one you like the most. Personally, I'm a big fan of the Tal Noisemaker. I just find it the most fun. Vital is obviously super powerful too, and if you don't want to spend the money on extra record serum, then this is a good alternative that is free. So it's probably between those two for my favorite. Surge is also really impressive too, but I just found something about that synth not so musical. It just felt a bit more work to try and get some cool sounds out of, but it is good too. And if you like this video, then YouTube thinks you'll like this one too. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on another video. Take care.